Okay, so I was watching a documentary and it talked about Charles the Sixth. It brought up a very interesting piece of information. Now, Charles the Sixth was the ruler of France from 1380 to 1422. But here's the thing, he was struck down with madness and he thought himself to be a pane of glass. Now, some documentaries say that he thought that he was a mirror. So, I'm not sure which one is which. I've seen more that say that he was a pane of glass. So when I looked it up, he apparently would lie in bed motionless. I mean, and when he would get out of bed, he had special clothing that had like metal rods to protect him. Nobody could touch him. And this is what's called glass delusion. And it was very common in the Middle Ages. There's a lot of documentation that talks about people who thought that their heads were glass, other body parts were glass, their backside were glass, and they wouldn't sit down because they thought that their backside would shatter. And I mean, they were terrified. We can laugh at it now, but it was a terrifying thing for them. And now there was a princess, I think, in the 1800s, 17 or 1800s, I don't know which one, Princess Alexandra of Bavaria, and apparently there's a special about her or a stage play. I'm not sure which one. Because I was getting a lot of about that instead of actually about her. And she thought that she had swallowed a glass piano. And so I will try and find more about her and, of course, put it in the description. I will put all of these links in the description for you as well that I look at. And so, and in the 1600s, there were a lot of authors that were writing about it. Robert, what's his name? Robert Burton wrote The Anatomy of Melancholy, and which touches on the subject. And quite honestly, I watched a documentary because that's what I do. And the, the Anatomy of Melancholy is actually very well written and holds true today. I got sucked in. I was like, oh, whatever. And then as they were talking about it and reading some of the parts of this book, it's very interesting. So he wrote a pretty darn good book. Now, Miguel de Cervantes, who is known for Don Quixote, he also wrote a book which is titled The Glass Graduate, and which is pretty self-explanatory. It's about, and one of the things that the character says, he claimed that being of glass, his perceptions are clearer than those of men of flesh, and demonstrated by offering witty comments. There was a Dutch poet who wrote A Costly Folly, and a French philosopher who wrote Meditations on First Philosophy. Now, the thing is that the glass delusion is not, it hasn't completely disappeared. This madness is still around. And it's just very rare. It's not like it, back in the Middle Ages, it was very common. It's very rare today. And in fact, it was starting to disappear in the 19th century. And but there's one instance with Peter Ilyich Tchaikovsky, who is known for like the 1812 Overture and The Sleeping Beauty and Swan Lake. very well-known composer. And when you read about it, they're trying to say that his neurotic behavior and everything else seems like that of Glass Delusion. And because when you read about it, psychiatric disorder, feared that they were made of glass and therefore likely to shatter into pieces, refused to allow people to touch him, and wore reinforced clothes. Concentration of the Glass Delusion among the wealthy and educated classes, allowing modern scholars to associate it with a wider and better described disorder of scholars' melancholy. Which isn't... melancholy is a word we don't really use today. Maybe we do, and I just don't hear it very often. But anyway, with Tchaikovsky, he was having like neurotic behavior and everything. In 1868, that was his first time conducting. And apparently, he went into this whole thing of he felt like his head would fall sideways unless he fought to keep it upright and everything. And then, so he avoided conducting. And then in 1886, he pointed out to his patrons, "All my life I've been tormented by awareness of my inability to conduct. It seems to me that there is something shameful and disreputable in not being able to stop myself, trembling with fear and horror at the very thought of going out in front of the public with a baton." In 1887, Tchaikovsky, in his third attempt, overcame his fear and conducted the premiere of The Enchantress. So they're trying to say that this is Glass Delusion. It doesn't sound like Glass Delusion at all. It just sounds like somebody who has a fear of going out on stage. Not everyone is as confident as Mozart, okay? And you also have to think that he could have been just downright terrified. Like, look, I wrote the music. Why are you making me go out there? And this is also 1868. I mean, this was during a time when people were giving their kids cocaine to calm them down to sleep. And I mean, that was just a common practice. So it could be that to calm himself down, he was using... Yeah, he could have been just downright terrified to go out there in front of a crowd. And so with that, it felt like his head would fall sideways. Yeah, because or it could have been that he was just hungover. he was nursing a hangover. I know that people, when they're nursing a hangover, it feels like their head's gonna fall off. Oh, neurotic to the bone, no doubt about it. No, I don't think that. But you know what? For those of you that read up on this, what are your thoughts? I mean, do you think that it's just one of those where he's with Tchaikovsky? Because maybe I'm defending him too much, and you can say so, but don't be mean about it. But honestly, I mean, it just sounds like he was scared to go out there and conduct, and you have to take into consideration the time period and everything. Musicians and artists, they're neurotic anyway. I know I am. I'm psychotic. Oh, I hear it all the time from people. So, what is wrong with you? Oh, heavens. Heavens to Betsy. But what are your thoughts? I mean, does this sound like he he may be suffering from glass delusion, or is it just one of those things where it could have been he's nursing a hangover, you know, got so nervous he took a little something, or what do you think? I would love to hear what you have to say. This is very interesting to me because first of all, it's odd to me that my history teacher never told us about this. It's one of those things that when you're teaching a bunch of teenagers, you want to find things that would interest them. You throw them like that weird bit of history. And you would think that somebody who thought themselves to be glass, you would tell your students. And so and then I remember my world history class, and we would have eaten that up for days. We would be talking about it all the time, and oh my gosh, teacher didn't do that. No, I don't understand why we weren't told about this. And and even this Princess Alexandra of Bavaria, I mean, why not? The fact that she thought that she swallowed a glass piano and nobody could touch her. And of course with Tchaikovsky, I don't think that was. And but anyway, I will make sure to put all of this in the description for all of these links that I'm looking at in the description for you. I will try to find a better link for Princess Alexandra because it's not really giving me anything. It's just giving me a special. I don't know if it's a stage play or a special that they did for her story. But I want to know your thoughts on this. And I mean, when I was reading up on King Charles and everything, it was like apparently he started out ruling the country, and then all of a sudden he was struck with this, and it was like a complete. He just changed, and it was his madness just turned him into, like, he had fits of rage, and he was haunted by some of his actions, which were pretty terrible from what I'm reading. And it kind of reminds me of King Henry VIII in the fact that, he was a handsome young man. He was very athletic. He was very well liked. And then the jousting accident happened, and it messed with his brain. He had to have a brain injury everything changed. So, and then he just ballooned and just everything. So, it's just too bad that these kinds of things happen. But anyway, I will put all of that in the description, all of these links in the description for you so you can read up on it and tell me your thoughts on it, because this is something that I have never heard of before. I've never heard of Glass Delusion until I heard about it in that documentary. And also, if you know what it was exactly he thought it was, because some say that he thought he was a mirror and others say he thought he was a pane of glass. So if you know exactly, please say so. Because, yeah, this is all new to me.